John Denver, the beloved singer of Take Me Home Country Roads, painted pictures of nature, hope, and simple joys with his songs. Yet, after his sudden passing, a hidden struggle emerged. A financial chaos that would bring his family deep sadness and years of trouble. Prepare to discover how his money meant for his loved ones instead became a long, painful battle. The day was clear and bright in October 1997. John Denver, a man known for his love of the open sky and an experienced pilot, took off in his experimental plane. He soared above the quiet waters of Monterey Bay, California. Then, without warning, the unthinkable happened. His long, easy model plane suddenly noseded into the Pacific Ocean, ending his life instantly at just 53 years old. The world reeled from the shock of losing a musical legend so suddenly. But the tragedy of his death was only the beginning of a different kind of storm. What came to light after the crash was a shocking truth that would haunt his family for years. John Denver, a man whose songs spoke of peace and simple pleasures, left behind a huge fortune valued at $19 million. This vast amount of money accumulated through decades of hit songs and performances seemed like it would secure his family's future. However, there was a twist. A simple oversight that would turn this fortune into a tangled nightmare. John Denver died without a will. This meant that instead of his wishes being clearly laid out, his money and belongings were now stuck in a complex legal maze. The law, not his personal desires, would decide who got what. The suddenness of his death, combined with this lack of a will, immediately plunged his loved ones into a period of intense grief, compounded by overwhelming financial uncertainty. The very fortune meant to provide comfort instead became the source of a prolonged, agonizing struggle. What exactly happened in those final moments above Monterey Bay? The National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, looked closely at the crash. John Denver was flying a Long Easy, a special plane designed by Burt Rutan, a brilliant aerospace engineer known for creating the Voyager, the first plane to fly around the world without stopping for fuel. But this particular Long Easy had been changed by its builder, and these changes created a deadly flaw. The plane had a fuel selection valve which lets the pilot choose which fuel tank to use. In Burt Rutan's original design, this valve was placed right on the front panel, easy to reach. But in John Denver's plane, the builder had moved it to a spot behind the pilot's left shoulder, making it very hard to reach. To make matters worse, the valve itself was stiff and hard to turn. John Denver and a maintenance worker had even tried to extend the handle with pliers to make it easier to reach. On the day of the crash, John Denver had flown the plane the day before and received a short half-hour lesson on its systems, including the fuel system. The plane had about 19 gal of fuel when it left Santa Maria, and the fuel selector was set to the right tank, which had about 12.5 gal. The NTSB found that the engine stopped because it ran out of fuel. When the engine started to sputter, John Denver likely tried to switch fuel tanks. To reach the hard-to-get-to valve, he would have had to brace himself by pushing his right foot all the way down on the rudder pedal. This action, combined with his attention being diverted from flying the plane, caused the plane to veer sharply to the right and plunge into the ocean from only a few hundred feet up. The NTSB said the main reasons for the crash were John Denver's attention being pulled away from flying and his accidental use of the right rudder while trying to move the fuel handle. Other factors included the builder putting the fuel selector in a bad spot, the fuel gauges being hard to read and unmarked, John Denver not getting enough training for this type of plane, and his lack of experience with it. The builder had tried to make the plane safer by moving the fuel lines out of the cockpit, but this created new dangerous problems. The pain of John Denver's sudden loss was just the beginning. What followed was a legal battle that would drag on for years, turning his fortune into a source of stress and worry for those he left behind. When someone dies without a will, their estate must go through a process called probate. This is a long drawn-out court case where a judge decides how everything should be divided for John Denver's $19 million estate. This process took a shocking 6 years to settle in court. Imagine the burden on a grieving family forced to live with uncertainty and mounting legal fees for half a decade, all while trying to process their immense loss. As if the long court process wasn't enough, a major fight erupted with the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. The IRS claimed his estate was worth $2.5 million more than what was initially reported, which meant the family supposedly owed about $1.5 million in extra taxes. The government agency also believed his record label and management company were worth twice as much as the estate had estimated. After years of back and forth, the truth emerged. The IRS had actually overestimated the value of the assets. In a surprising turn, the estate eventually received a $600,000 tax refund some years later. While this was a positive outcome, it came at a tremendous cost. The family had endured enormous tax and financial hassles and spent 6 years in court. With no will to guide them, a critical question hung heavy in the air. Who would inherit the millions? The law stepped in, but not without its own set of complications and heartaches that would echo through the family. Because John Denver died in California and was not married at the time of his death, California law dictated that his children would inherit all his property. John Denver had 3 children, Zachary and Anna Kate, who were adopted with his first wife, Annie Martell, and Jessie Bell, his biological daughter, with his second wife, Cassandra Delaney. It was his first ex-wife, Annie Martell, who was given the difficult and emotionally taxing job of managing his estate. Annie, who had once been the inspiration for his famous Annie song, now faced the daunting task of sorting through his financial legacy. She divided the assets equally among the 3 children. For his youngest, 8-year-old Jessie Bell, her share was wisely placed into a special trust to protect it. This was a crucial step to ensure her future, as without a will, decisions about guardianship for underage children can be left to the court. Interestingly, John had shown some foresight in his life. He had actually set up separate trusts worth $7 million each for his mother, his father, his first ex-wife Annie, and for each of his 3 children when they were born. This showed a clear intention to provide for certain loved ones. However, there was a notable absence. A stark reminder of past pain. He did not set up a trust for his second ex-wife, Cassandra. This deliberate omission was a direct result of their very bitter and public divorce, which had caused immense emotional turmoil for both of them. But how did John Denver build such a vast fortune that would later cause so much turmoil? His journey began far from the bright lights of fame in a childhood shaped by constant movement and a deep connection to nature. His story began as Henry John Dutzkondorf Jr., born on December 31, 1943 in Roswell, New Mexico. His father, Henry John Dutzkondorf Sr., was a U.S. Air Force colonel and pilot, which meant the family moved frequently. Young John lived in many places, including Arizona, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, and even Japan. When he was just 8 years old, one of his grandmothers gave him a vintage Gibson guitar, sparking a lifelong love for music. Some of his happiest childhood memories were spent on his other grandmother's farm in Corn, Oklahoma, where he would listen to country music, play with animals, and sleep under the stars. He started his music career while studying architecture at Texas Tech University, earning money by playing solo gigs, singing with a trio, and playing guitar in a band. But his heart was set on music. So he left school and moved to Los Angeles in 1964. It was around this time that he chose his stage name Denver because his heart longed to live in the mountains. In Los Angeles, he played acoustic guitar and sang folk songs at a club called Lead Betters. And he also joined a group called the Back Porch Majority. His first big break came in New York City when he replaced Chad Mitchell as the lead singer of the popular folk group, the Chad Mitchell Trio, in 1965. He sang with them, played guitar and banjo, and recorded pop and folk songs from 1965 to 1968. It was while performing with this trio at her college that he met his first wife, Annie Martell, whom he married in 1967. His songwriting talent soon shone brightly. In 1967, he wrote the #1 hit song, Leaving on a Jet Plane, which became famous when Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded it. This success led him to sign with RCA in 1969. His first single to sell 1 million copies was Take Me Home Country Roads in 1971. Throughout the 1970s, John Denver became the best-selling recording artist in America, earning numerous gold and platinum albums. He was a successful crossover star in pop, folk, and country music, reaching fans across genres and generations. He wrote around 200 of the approximately 300 songs he recorded, and his music catalog included 33 albums and singles that earned gold and platinum awards with total sales surpassing 33 million copies. His songs often reflected his love for the outdoors, his dislike for city life, his passion for music, and his experiences in relationships. Beyond his musical prowess, John Denver was also a talented actor, starring opposite the legendary George Burns in the movie Oh God in 1977. He created many beloved TV specials, including a classic Christmas program with Jim Henson's Muppets, and his show An Evening with John Denver even won an Emmy Award in 1975. These ventures added significantly to his wealth and public profile. His career slowed down after the 1970s, but in 1996 he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Among his most cherished possessions was his beloved Aspen mansion. He had this huge 7735 cu-feet home custom built in 1972 on 2.6 acres in the exclusive Starwood neighborhood high in the Colorado Mountains. This Rocky Mountain paradise was more than just a house. It was a sanctuary that deeply inspired him, even leading him to write his famous song Starwood and Aspen. It was his legacy and refuge. After his death, this special home became part of the changing financial picture. It sold for $3.68 million, then again in 2016 for $2.75 million, and was back on the market in 2019 for $11 million after being renovated. His passions also became valuable assets. His love for flying was well known, tragically culminating in the crash of his experimental long, easy plane. He was also a talented photographer, capturing images from his travels and even showcasing his work professionally. His collection of guitars and other personal items were also valuable. After his passing, items like his stage used 1994 Taylor 12-string and 6-string acoustic guitars, handwritten song lyrics, guitar straps, and even money clips from golf tournaments were later sold. He also held important awards such as an Australian Gold Disc Award. All these assets, while contributing to his fortune, would become part of the complex puzzle his family had to untangle. But this wealth and the life that built it came with a hidden cost, a personal torment that would also bring tears to those closest to him. Behind the public smile, John Denver's family life held deep, painful secrets that would add to their sorrow after his passing. His divorce from his second wife, Cassandra Delaney, was particularly bitter. Even before his death, Cassandra spoke out, revealing a troubled marriage filled with bullying, threats, jealousy, and heavy drinking. She painted a picture of a man who could be a control freak and claimed he tried to destroy us as a family. The fight for custody of their daughter, Jessie Bell, was dramatic and costly, with court costs alone reaching $3.3 million. Cassandra even had to borrow money from a friend just to pay her legal bills because all credit cards were in Jay's name. She described how he threatened to take Jessie away from me and watch me walk away and crumble to the ground with nothing.